on the script.
Say hello. Say something, dude. We started.
I know.
Hey guys!
Please don't let that be what started. Come on, man.
Okay.
Say something. This is insane. This is an insane amount of time for you not to have started.
I'm in a storage unit. That's why it's this crazy echo.
Andrew,
I record in
just
storage
say
units.
something.
It's like the more you say it, I can't.
Hello and welcome to the Greater Meaning Podcast. My name is Nathan. This is Andrew.
Hello.
And Josh is also
I'm
with
Josh.
us. And we'd like to welcome you to a big one. This is going to be a big one, guys. Because this is the one that's about Joseph.
Oh man, I got really nervous for some reason. I got
Not
super
Mary's
camera
Joseph. Jacob.
No,
Joseph.
not the Joseph that's the father of Jesus. This is Joseph that's one of the fathers of Israel.
Well,
Actually, doesn't it
Israel's
say
son.
somewhere in Luke where it literally goes through the genealogy and then it goes Jacob and then Joseph and then Jesus?
There you go.
the genealogy of Jacob. We're going to actually get into this episode. I am very excited, like everybody else is. Thank you for introducing us, Nathan. Man, we've been going through the story of the Bible, and again, we are the GMP podcast, the Greater Meaning Podcast, where we're taking you through the Bible in chronological order, and we have reached the end of the first book of the Bible, and we're really excited because Joseph is probably one of my personal favorite stories in Genesis. It's probably one of the most well-known, another well-known story in the Bible, and we're kind of transitioning now. We're like in this spot where we're ending with the patriarchs and we're going into, we're right before Moses. We were right after Jacob. It's going to be an incredible story. We're going to have multiple parts, and there's so much in this story that I didn't know before. Man, it's going to be a really, really good one. And I know I probably say that every single time, which is kind of weird because it's the Bible, but this one particularly, I'm telling you, it's going to be great. Now, in this final section of the Bible, it's interesting because the narrative kind of mainly focuses on Joseph. And Josh, you made a really good point about the genealogies. And up until this point, Genesis has been focusing on the lineage of the quote unquote seed. Remember back in the first story, whenever Eve fell to sin by the snake and she ate the apple or not the apple, but the fruit. And God came down and punished the serpent. And he made that first messianic prophecy stating that you will have enmity between the woman and the snake, and the seed of the serpent, the head will be crushed by the seed of the woman. And that was kind of a telling that God is planning to bring about this redeemer, this savior from this enemy that we now have on this earth. And the story of Genesis has followed us along through that seed. You had, Adam to Seth, Noah, you have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. But why does this final section, and even the way the Bible starts, it's really interesting. In chapter 37, the story even starts with a very interesting phrase. It says, now, this is the history of Jacob. And up until now, the genealogies, like when you get to the end of a story or the end of a character, you would have, and this is the genealogies, or this is the sons of this and that, and it goes on. And this is the part of the Bible. It's kind of more different. It starts off like, now this is the history, or this is the genealogies of Jacob. And then Joseph, it just goes into the story. And it's probably
the way I'm looking at this, it's basically like, we are so used to whenever a story is told, it's like, once upon a time, or it starts with the beginning, and then there's the old fashioned kind of like when you're watching a movie and you see all the this is the director, blah blah blah. These are the people who did all the sound, and then nowadays you have it at the very end. You don't see it at the beginning. So this is kind of like probably almost the same concept where instead of all the what are those called again? The credits, my bad. Instead of all the credits being at the beginning, for this, it's like at the very end. Chapter 37 starts off with, this is the history of Jacob, basically concluding Jacob's big, stories. Now it goes into Joseph. I think that's the way it was portrayed.
And here's another interesting thing, and especially we're going to find in this episode, we're introduced to this widely known character, Joseph. But as you mentioned, the genealogies, Joseph, while a son of Jacob, and a very important figure, as you'll see. I mean, his story itself is a story of betrayal, of struggle, divine providence, forgiveness. It's an incredible journey. You literally have, if you guys know Joseph Campbell,
I'm sorry.
You have literally the hero's journey through this guy's life. But we're going to have the story of another figure, another one of Joseph's or Jacob's sons. Judah is going to find himself in this story, and the entire chapter 38 is going to be deviating from the story of Joseph. And it's really through the line of Judah and his sons that David is born, and eventually the seed, which we know Jesus Christ, will be born through that lineage. So again, it's like, why are we starting off with Joseph, and what's the reason? And that's why I'm really excited to get up into the story. I'm ready to kind of get it started.
I like Joseph.
I mean, have you ever watched, Joseph King of Dreams, the sequel, or I should say prequel to like The Prince of Egypt?
No.
That's when Disney writers were actually Christian, I would say.
DreamWorks.
The thing that you got to remember about
doesn't
Joseph
Disney own
is
DreamWorks now?
I don't know, but I know that it was a DreamWorks thing, and I know that they were different.
Well, whoever those
great.
directors were definitely believers.
I like the thing I like about Joseph is he tells you how great he is.
Yeah, Joseph is going to be a very interesting character, and we're going to start off as a 17-year-old. And, if you've ever had that, like, really persistent younger brother who likes to hang out, that always wants to be...
He was probably 17.
Joseph was 17 when the story starts. But actually, Nathan, go ahead and get us started. Genesis chapter 37. Let's start with the first 4 verses, please.
Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers. And the lad was the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him.
Awesome. What an introduction.
Made him
Jacob's little spy.
With many colors.
So many things thrown into 4 verses. That's the thing about the next couple chapters, is that it's just straight storytelling. It's just going to be one after another, detail after detail. And I don't want to just read every verse. I want to talk about it. I want to go through the story in a real way. But man,
there's no other way to do it other than just to read it, because it's laid out so perfectly. That's the problem.
Oh yeah. No,
I think we shouldn't read. I think what we should do is not even discuss.
I think we should just let the reader read it to us.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, dude. That's a very bad joke. Go ahead, Andrew.
Joseph, as we know from the stories leading up until now, remember that Jacob had children with 4 women. He had Leah, the older sister of Rachel. And remember, he worked 7 years and was deceived into marrying Leah. And then he worked another 7 years for the one that he wanted, which was Rachel. Joseph was the firstborn of his preferred wife, Rachel. And at this point, it was known as the son of his old age, meaning that it was somebody that, life he already had sons. The time has passed. He was closer and favored Joseph more than all his other children. And we already have him here kind of already, doing so many different things that would be, I guess we're all older. I'm an older brother. Josh is an older brother, but like it says he brought a bad report of his brothers, and the specific brothers he was hanging out with here would have been Gad, Asher, Dan, and Naphtali.
He was a tattle.
The troublemakers, in other words. That's what they were.
Well, they were the sons of the concubines. Remember, the ones that not the concubines.
Now they're no longer concubines.
Maidservants of the wives.
Apparently now they're his wives. So at some point from chapter 36 to chapter 37, he married them.
Well, I think they took on other roles as just the servants to his wives, because at this point they bore him multiple children. And at this point, he's living. He's
children.
He's got flocks. He's got animals. And Joseph is that guy that would come back and report everything that they were doing. we've ever done anything wrong, like, I'ma tell mom, he's always running back and getting them in trouble.
It's not just that. I think that Jacob purposely had it set up that way, because you'll see even later on in this chapter, he does the same exact thing. Like, hey, go out and give me a report of what the brothers are doing. And then that's when he gets thrown into a pit.
Yeah. I mean, that's because now that Jacob knows that he could use Joseph to do that, he would do that. But there's a very interesting thing is the fact that Joseph is being favored by his father too. He's given him a tunic of many colors, and it's obviously setting him apart, even though at this point, it's creating hatred between him and his brothers to the point where they literally cannot talk to him.
That's one thing that I kind of wrote down that I had a question about. It's just like, it didn't make sense from so I have a hypothesis, a conclusion about this, kind of my own theories. But from a fatherly aspect, if you know the other children are you're not going to give one kid one toy and then not buy anybody else something else. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get something for all your children, because you know that that's going to cause some type of trouble, some type of issues between all of them. So it was very troubling in my mind. It's just, why in the world would Jacob go and do something like this in front of everybody else and just give him this gift, this wonderful gift? And even like the aspect of it being a colorful, right? A coat of many colors or something. The Septuagint, basically, of the Greek form of what it was taken from. Actually, I guess there's other ways to say it, but it also could have been just a long sleeve coat, or a coat with many colors, with like ornaments or something like that. There's like different ways to look at it. But what?
Sorry. No, it was just funny. Like, this coat of many colors, the Septuagint, the Greek translation showed that it was like almost like a coat with long arms with many colors. It's very interesting, right?
No,
it just said the same thing twice, but then added Septuagint.
I just wanted to portray basically where it came from, where we got the term coat of many colors, because that's not what it was actually called.
Yeah,
it was the way that. But either way, back to what I was saying. I think that so my conclusion with this is, it wasn't just a gift. It wasn't like a gift, like a normal type of gift. I think it was a way of Jacob telling everybody, basically telling all of Israel, hey, this is my son, and this is going to be the next leader of the clan, of the family of Israel.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a sign setting him apart already from everybody else. If you're like going to pick him. And there's like a thing that happens, even if like in military, or if you played sports, it's like the one guy, like the leaders will choose one and just kind of favor them, and then everybody else always go hard on them, and it does something to them. It's like, it literally ostracizes them.
It builds
them
character,
from the group.
A character of leadership
it
that they
separates
can use
them
later on.
It separates them, and it makes it a they versus this individual type thing.
Exactly.
Like, oh, he's automatically the goody two shoes. Oh, he's not one of us. And you ask, why would it be like this? Why Jacob would do this? Think about how Jacob was raised. He was raised with this same type of favoritism in his family. Remember that Isaac and Rebekah had their favorites. Isaac way preferred Esau, and then Jacob dwelt in the tents with his mom. And it would have been like, so for him growing up, he never had that like healthy relationship with his parents where there was like equality and nurturing and growth. It would have been like Isaac, his father, would have spent all his time with Esau, preferred his game, and wanted to bless him. And then you would have had Jacob kind of raised in the tents, raised by her side, always doing kind of what she did, cooking, kind of probably, we know that he wasn't stupid and he knew how to shepherd, because obviously he'd worked for his uncle, but, there would have been partiality. And remember, that was a huge problem that led to this enmity and this separation, this competitiveness for God's blessing between the brothers, whereas it should have been something where they grew up close since they were twins. And Jacob, being a product of that household, being a product of that upbringing, now has all these children. In his opinion, his goal was only to marry Rachel. That's who he wanted. And now she was barren for a long time, and he had sons through Rachel's mistress, and he had sons through Leah, and then Leah's mistress, and and it's just, that's kind of what brought about it. It was this thing where it was that's the way he was raised,
So
No,
He
you bring
had
up a good point.
favorites.
That is a good point.
that's what he said. He had favorites.
And
He favored Joseph.
and it was a problem. It was a problem because it created this separation, this target on Joseph's back to be hated to the point where they couldn't even speak to each other.
Well, we could definitely
Let's
see,
read on.
well, I don't want to say unlike Isaac, but we could definitely see with Jacob that Jacob was definitely a wise individual, not just a wise businessman, not just a wise shepherd, not just a wise father. He was just wise all around. You could see that about him. So him doing this kind of cruel thing to Joseph, kind of yeah, I do agree with you. It basically is making
remember
him
that
tougher
Jacob
and making
also-
him a better leader.
I don't think that. You could probably interpret it that way, like Jacob was trying to make Joseph the leader. But needless to say, there's some obvious things that we pick up here in the family, like that kind of carried over from Jacob's life. But let's kind of continue on, Nathan. If you can read what kind of happens as a result of this, verses 5 through 11 for me, please.
All right, now we're getting to Joseph. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, "Please hear this dream which I have dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my sheaf arose and also stood upright. And indeed, your sheaf stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf."
Why? Is that how he talked in your head?
Yes. And his brother said to
I
him,
think so,
"Shall
too.
you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and said, "Look, I have dreamt another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me." So he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
Now, full transparency, I did a lot of reading about his dreams.
"I'm gonna be king, and you shall bow to me."
Oh, he did. I don't think he spoke like that, but it is my favorite verse that I was reading up until now. It was like, you already preface it with your brothers hate you and they cannot talk to you nicely, and it's like, please hear this dream, like please, like verse 6, please,
Guys, hear what I dreamt.
just.
I think the way
dude.
that Nathan is portraying it is almost, I think, very good, very very perfect in the way that
Spot on.
he's saying it, because obviously we see that Joseph has like a teacher's pet almost mentality of almost even a character of a teacher's pet, where at first we see that he likes to tell on his brothers, he likes to be that type of individual, and then we see that he's going and he's proclaiming almost blissfully, like not even knowing that it's gonna even make himself even more hated. But even when he's telling his father's father's also like, "Yo, dude, like, chill, take it easy. Like, I mean, we get it. These dreams, I know God's going to use you. I've had like prophecies and stuff like that, but you need to like relax and kind of, there's a point where you need to keep some stuff to yourself." But Joseph just being Joseph, I guess.
I mean, you have to also understand Joseph is 17 and has a tunic of multicolors that he gets to wear, where all the rest of his brothers don't have that. And he's arrogant because he's like, "I'm clearly special." And guess what? Now God is giving me dreams of how special I am.
Yeah.
I always knew I was special, but now here's the proof. I had a dream. You guys all bowed to me. Like, is that crazy, guys? Don't you love me more? Because I'm clearly so it wasn't just me. It's God too. He chose me.
Now, to be fair, because this is a pretty common angle to take from this, because it's kind of the first thing you see. I have had conversations with people, and I've read a little bit to where it was like, even the tattletelling and even like the running behind, could it have just been that he was just curious and he was just wondering, if he spent, okay, so think about this, like from this point of view. He is favored by his father, so he's probably kept close, and he sees him. He's probably dwelling with his father a lot more than his brothers are carrying. I think that the movie, the DreamWorks movie, which it's not scripture, but it does a really good job of like showing, like, imagine him being kind of set apart. Remember how Jacob was a man of the tents? He probably kept Joseph with him. Now, Jacob at this point is old. He has lived his life. He has had godly encounters, and he's a godly man. So he sees probably Jacob living. He's Israel at this point. His name has changed. He's had this many divine encounters and a lifetime of experience. And Joseph is staying close to him. And then he's learning these lessons from him. But then he hangs out with his brothers, and he's like, hey, Dad, isn't it weird that, you do this, but they're doing all these things? Like, they're kind of wild. You know what I mean? Like, what's the difference? And that's kind of like how some people interpret, like, and he gave them a report of them, No,
I get it. I get that the common way to view Joseph, honestly, is, oh, he wasn't arrogant. He was just righteous. But, I mean, to me, it just kind of screams self-righteous.
Arrogant.
And there's a reason why Joseph is humbled severely throughout his life.
That's fair.
It's not like Joseph continues on and no, everything's going to take a drastic turn for this guy.
And Joseph was happily ever after, better than everyone else.
It's not going to be like that for him.
There's just a bunch of character building moments in his life to bring him to a certain point.
Life is going to humble him. And
it's
I see just these small verses. To me, I'm just like, like, I get it. Sometimes you can be special and chosen or whatever. You might have abilities but if you don't have a humble spirit, and I don't know if his spirit was that humble.
You're right. And there's also naivety and naivete and ignorance from his part. His immaturity definitely would have played a part into the way he probably relayed his gifts of having dreams. And we're going to see that dreams and interpretations of dreams are going to be one of the things that God bestows on him to be able to kind of further along God's plan in his life.
We'll see in a little bit too that in this next section that Joseph's just walking around with this colorful coat. So he's parading around his awesomeness, in other words.
Yeah, he could have not worn it. He could have just had it and then worn a regular tunic.
I just want my brothers to love me,
like,
man.
He like purposely chose to wear it all the time. It's like you're given like a Super Bowl ring. They don't wear their rings everywhere they go. They keep it at home.
I mean, yeah, that's just because they don't want to get robbed and or beaten and thrown in a pit
or sold into
slavery.
Yeah.
Oh man, I have this part. I want to save this for the end because I want to kind of go through this story, and at the end of this episode, I have like this idea with the dreams that he has and the significance of them, because
save that for your greater meeting, Andrew.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do, because I don't want to give a whole point now and then at the end repeat it. But the dreams that he has, if most of you know the story, if you haven't, I'm glad you're listening to it for the first time through us. His life is going to take such a turn where this is a prophetic dream that is fulfilled in the end of his life. But it's so much more deep than that. And that's one of the reasons I love the Bible and I love the stories of the Bible, because it has a way of connecting throughout all of it. And you see God's divine providence and his planning, and the fact that he had everything in store, and everything he shows and reveals has seeds that build towards a better future. So I want us to keep those dreams in mind. First off, he had the sheaves of wheat, meaning like bundles of wheat. Think of it like that for those of you who don't know that word. And they were bundled up, and all of them fell down towards the other one. And then you have the sun and the moon and 11 stars, which is wild, because even Jacob, like you guys said, like Jacob loves him. And even he was like, yo, just really chill out. Like, I'm your dad. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he like still kept them in his heart, but he was like, Joseph, you need to humble yourself a little. You know what? Today you're going to go work out in the field with your brothers, because that's literally what happens.
I agree with you, but still, like, relax. I agree. I know, but you need to chill.
Yeah, and his brothers went from hating him more to envying him and now being jealous, which is just the best combination. We know what happens when a brother is envious and hates his brother. Canaan. Anyway, but we see what happens right after this. Nathan, if you read the next couple verses from us or for us.
Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem.
Which is great because, there was just so many. Like, I'm glad that they're still going there. But yeah.
What's in Shechem?
That's where Simeon and Levi killed everyone.
Okay. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I'll send you to them." So he said to him, "Here I am." Then he said to him, "Please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me." So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. Now a certain man found him, and there he was, wandering in the field. And a man asked him, saying, "What are you seeking?" So he said, "I'm seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding their flocks." And the men said, "They have departed from here, for I heard him say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him. Then they said to one another, "Look, this dreamer is coming. Come, therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit. And we shall say, 'Some wild beast has devoured him.' We shall see what will become of his dreams."
So, yeah, not a lot to break down there. That was just mostly story.
So, isn't it? Yeah.
No. So it's
Well,
crazy.
no,
He says, "Here I am" to his father.
I can definitely, this little section of the story, we can definitely see how much they really hated him. It wasn't just like, a jealousy or even like, I don't like my brother because he's favored by my father type of situation. Mm-hmm. There was a serious hatred where they actually had to cultivate and group up and be like, you know what? Let's just kill him. It wasn't a premeditated thing either. It was something where they saw him in a distance and were like, "Hey, you know what? How about we just kill him right now?" Type of thing.
Let's just take him out. It's because they went from two places. They're like, "Dude, he just tracked us down between two cities. Like, we cannot shake this kid."
Well, they know that why he's there is because he's going to tell on them. Who knows what they're doing and why they're in Dothan, but the fact that they know that he's going to go there and tell on them was just another thing that fueled their anger probably even more. And he's walking around with that freaking the colorful coat that he's just striding around in. So, yeah.
Let's put one thing straight, too, as well, that we have to understand. The other sons of Jacob kind of are terrible. Like, they aren't good. Now, they're constantly doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and Joseph is just kind of like that innocent dude, just probably annoying, reporting on that constantly. And
yes, but they're bad. They're wicked, but they're not to the point where they do not understand morals of, hey, let's not kill our own brother type of thing. So they know that is bad.
Well,
but they found an opportunity where they can make it look like
an accident. They caught him. You caught Joseph in this position where he was outside of the guise of his father. And what I like here is that there's some characters that pop up where we can, right now the other sons of Jacob are kind of just categorized in this group, but now we start to see a few of them actually they're planning to kill him. They want to throw him in a pit and just say, "Oh, he was killed by some beast." But the oldest son, the firstborn out of all of them, Reuben, heard it. And it said that he delivered him out of their hands and just kind of calmed everybody down. He's like, let's not kill him, shed no blood, but cast him into a pit, which is in the wilderness.
I don't think I read that part yet.
I know. I'm just kind of explaining it. Sorry. And so that, that he says, don't kill him, throw him in a pit and just leave him there. And what Reuben was planning to do was come back later and kind of set him free and kind of be the one that saves him and redelivers him to his father. Now, there was something very interesting about this. Do you remember what Reuben was kind of known for up until this point?
Killing people?
Doing something bad with his father's wife?
Yeah, Reuben was the one that pretty much slept with his father's. Which one was it? Oh man, Bill.
Right after his,
he laid down.
Right after Rachel died, right?
Exactly. After she gave birth to Ben, and
Well, maybe Reuben was just a
this
sensitive
point-
soul and took advantage. I mean, even like maybe he was a not wedding crasher because he was obviously invited to the wedding, but maybe he's just a sensitive guy and he was able to get the ladies and even in this situation, he's not a bad guy. He's just more on the sensitive side.
well, remember the passage says that Israel heard about it, and we know, looking back now, that at this point, because of the way he lived his life and how he was, that even though he was the firstborn, Israel had kind of taken away him in his mind as like the heir to what he had and the heir of the promise. And I'm thinking and doing some context clues, the way he was, there was twofold. I think he didn't want to kill his brother. He probably had that heart to save him, but they could have also been like,
He's trying to gain favor.
He's trying to like get it back in his father's good graces.
Yeah, so he's gonna be like, I saved your favorite son.
Exactly. It says that he might be deliver him out of their hand and bring him back to his father, kind of like implying a selfish motive behind it. Like, all right, let me just let this all thing happen. But then
You know what? That
in
makes
and be
more
the
sense.
hero.
I agree with that one more
Yeah.
than him being sensitive.
Now, Nathan, if you could read the next couple verses here, I want to kind of continue the story.
Where? From Reuben?
From 23, from verse 23.
Okay. This is after Reuben
He's kind of
told
like
him,
talking
like,
to him.
put him in the pit, and then he's thinking he's going to deliver him and bring him back to his father. Okay. Verse 23. So it came to pass when Joseph had come to his brothers that they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors that was on him. Then they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat a meal. Then they lifted their eyes and looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites. Ishmaelites. What did I say? Ishmaelites?
Yes.
Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels bearing spices, balm, and myrrh on their way to carry them down to Egypt. So Judah said to his brothers, what profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brothers listened. Then Midianite traders passed by, so the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt.
That's fun.
Okay, we're going to keep reading?
No, I mean, the rest, let's just stop here for just a second, because
20 shekels.
the first thing they do is they just took off they stripped him of that coat. They're just like, they grab him.
Take this coat off.
Get this off of you. Get out of here. I laughed when I read that more and more. I was just like,
Take this coat off.
they sat down to a meal and they're just like,
There's so many colors. Why?
how did they even make purple? That doesn't even make sense.
Why is there 17 of them?
Well, then they made it one color, the color red.
Ooh. I don't really know. I mean, I guess, yeah, that's...
They did. They dipped it in goat's blood.
no, I know, but I was just like, ooh. They threw him in a pit which had no water, and it just like, all right, let's just eat. Reuben's not even with them at this point. Reuben walked away, and they're just like seeing this. Now, Ishmaelites, you guys remember Ishmael? These are his
Yes.
children. So,
Ishmaelites.
Ishmaelites, the mites that crawl on your walls. Yeah, I just thought that was funny that they made an appearance, and that's who they used to sell Joseph in.
You want it?
To slavery.
You want me to tie
that's
Ishmael
kind of an extreme
really cool
response.
into this?
Please.
So, with the previous stories, obviously we see, like, let's say with Abraham and Ishmael, obviously they depart. But then with Isaac, right, and with Esau,
It was Abraham's first son.
Yeah. So once everything started to go wrong with Esau and Jacob, Esau goes to meet with Ishmael, right? So we have that pattern a little bit and then now with Jacob's sons, everything starts to go wrong. And then they meet with who? Ishmael, like basically not Ishmael himself, but the children of Ishmael, right? And then they do a deal with him. And then, so it's an interesting, like, when things go wrong, they meet with the enemy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was your tie-in?
That he just pops up whenever things are going wrong with the non-preferred sons.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong.
No, I'm not saying he's wrong. So obviously Reuben failed.
No, but I want to point out something very important. It was also, so Reuben had a plan to save him and to kind of for selfish gains. And then we have Judah, his other brother. This is the fourth child of Jacob.
Judah.
And that's who's going to kind of take on the next kind of main character role here in just a second. Said to his brother, you know, what profit there is there if we kill your brother and conceal his blood? Let's at least make some money for it. You know, by doing this, he's like inadvertently saving Joseph's life a second time.
In a much smarter way.
And in a way that kind of profits him too. And it's
like, guys, come on, let's make some money instead of killing the kid.
Yeah.
They'll kill the kid.
I'm sure somebody that buys him will kill him and or use him or
we'll have
him.
Money.
20, I don't know how much that would have been for them. I'm assuming it would have been a significant amount since it was a human life.
20 shekels.
The Bible tells us that Joseph was an attractive man in appearance, so it probably would have got him some money later on. So I'm assuming that's how human slavery works. I don't have any personal experience with that, but
they sold him for 20 shekels because that was his worth. Basically, the amount, it's his weight in gold, right? That's kind of a term. He was 20 years old, kind of somewhere around there. So they sold him for 20 shekels. They sell them on sometimes on age, like how much experience they have in life.
I'm just kidding. Is that?
I think wasn't he 17?
He was 17.
I think they added 3 shekels because he was hot.
No, that's how much
for some reason. In Leviticus,
how did they assess his experience?
Wait. If I pull up Leviticus, keep going because
we're gonna talk about how the Bible tells us how to treat slaves.
Well, yeah. So I guess in Leviticus, a boy between the ages of 5 and 20 is valued at 20 shekels of silver, and a girl that is of that age of 5 and 20 is valued at 10 shekels of silver. So I guess in Leviticus, it tells you how much people kind of cost
or worth. That's good. I mean,
I'm looking forward to that discussion.
Let's get to the slavery worth and how to treat and the logistics of owning and selling humans.
Well, I mean, we have to tackle slavery now because Joseph literally just got sold into slavery.
Yes, I guess
so. Like, what was old ancient slavery? How does it differ from modern day slavery?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
You know,
necessarily if
there's like a lot of.
If we're going to jump into that topic right now, because in the next,
we're not going to get too much into it.
That's where we're really going to get into it.
Yeah, but I will just give a quick preference. I need, being that we're in 2024 Americans, we have this idea of slavery based off of the most recent account of what's in our history, which is the chattel slavery of the African slaves that were
in American history. The most recent in American history.
In American history,
slavery is still going on.
That's it.
Well, we're in America,
but slavery has been going on as long as there was people that could overpower another people. There's always been slaves, and there have been different types of slavery. And even in the Bible, there are slaves and masters, and it talks about the relationship one should have with one. And again, I'm not going to get too much into it just yet, but I do want to say, oftentimes you had situations like this where someone's free will was taken away and they were sold as a person, as a servant. But they were treated as a worker. They were treated as, and we're going to see even with Joseph's life, he had an ability to raise up in the ranks. It wasn't just thrown in the fields, beaten mercilessly, and treated as property, which is as rough as what chattel slavery was in the Americas, which was probably one of the most despicable things that humanity is capable of. It's absolutely disgusting. But slavery also, like even in Roman times, you could do it temporarily, become a servant or a slave.
If you owed a debt.
Yeah, you could work off debts. You could use it to purchase certain things. You could be working for a wage.
Those were voluntary. So that was different because that was voluntary type of
I'm saying that it's
servanthood.
very nuanced. There are different nuance. I don't know if that's the right word, but there are different types of slavery, different things. Obviously, this one is, I'm sure Joseph was taken against his will, sold, and they didn't really.
Well, that was to the Egyptians. The Egyptians definitely believed in slavery, not as like a bond
Egyptians
slave,
had
kind of how the
slaves
Hebrews have it.
Exactly. Bond slavery. And we're going to get more into it. But Joseph was definitely in the latter as terms of more rough slavery, like against your will, treated as property, kind of beaten, but maybe not as bad as chattel slavery in Americas, but kind of like a in the middle, if you will, from I'm a servant, but my title is a slave. I'm treated well. I have laws versus I'm a piece of property that I could be dealt with as literally an animal and I don't need rights or anything like that. So,
I mean, aren't we going to see
not a good
later on with
situation.
Moses and the Egyptians of how the Hebrews are being treated as slaves to build all of Egypt?
Yes.
And there's people literally
It's
walking
gonna
around
get-
with whips and beating them to work harder, and people are just dying constantly. I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
going to
no, it's
be
gonna get-
on the political end and say that America did the worst of ever with all of slavery. I think slavery in itself, through every nation that did it, and almost every nation did do it, each nation had its own type of cruelty. At the end of the day, all sins are bad, right? But with this aspect, I think different ways of doing slavery, they're all bad, right? It's just simple as that.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you're absolutely right. It's going to there's a certain way that Egyptians are treating their slaves right now. And then 400 years later, they're going to be especially bad to the Israelites. And we're going to get into
wait, because I want to hit on this other thing just to make it look a little bit more intense. With Moses, the king literally is like, all right, go through all the Hebrew camps and kill all the firstborn children of the Hebrew camp. I mean, imagine that. Okay, in America, if that happened with the African Americans, imagine just the president saying, all right, all the firstborn children of all the black people, we're going to kill them all. That's messed up, right?
Yeah, I mean, they essentially did. They were that rough with them. They were parts, like people, their families were separated. Children were also sold off. Certain men were used for breeding. They were literally like that. They didn't have any regard for their life, their quality of life, or anything. So maybe it was closer to that American style of slavery. But the Israelites in Egypt 400 years later will be especially mistreated because once they're there, and that's at the end of the story, so we're getting ahead of ourselves, but they would have been beginning to prosper and multiply, and they were a threat to the Egyptians. So they were especially culled and also mistreated, like as a point, and they were separated. I don't know if that was just a rule of thumb for every single slave that was in Egypt at the time. But needless to say, Joseph is now going to find out firsthand exactly what type of slavery Egypt kind of employs, and it's not going to be good for him.
Let me finish off.
Finish off the rest of the chapter. There's 5 more verses from 31.
Oh, we're skipping Reuben.
Oh, yeah. Reuben goes back to the pit, and obviously Joseph wasn't there. And he gets really upset to the point where he tears his clothes.
I'm not going to have favor with my father.
Like, that was my one chance.
That's one way of getting
31.
upset in the Bible, is you just tear your clothes apart.
Yeah, the lad is no more, and where should I go? Like, that was my last thing. I didn't have any favor with my father.
All right, so they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the tunic in the blood. Then they sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, "We have found this. Do you know whether it is your son's tunic or not?" And he recognized it and said, It is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him. Without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his waist, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, "For I shall go down into the grave to my son in mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Now the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard.
That's it's just funny.
Impeccable reading there, Nathan. Great
Is
job.
this that coat that they obviously hate and memorize? Like, this isn't do you know this? What does this look like to you?
We found this. It was
Have you seen Joseph?
Tore it off. I mean, we didn't tear it off his body and throw him in a pit and then sold him into slavery. We found this in the field with blood.
Have you seen Joseph? We were looking everywhere.
Look, we didn't sell him, okay? Like, what are you talking about? Sell? This is my son's coat.
And this absolutely destroys Jacob. Jacob is like without comfort. And I think that this actually strikes their sons at the heart. And this is something that they're going to have to live with. They're going to have to deal with their father. The depth of the disgusting thing that they did that guilt is going to eat them alive for years.
Yeah, because there's
And
no return
this-
policy on slaves.
Oh no. And this is their own, this is like not even, it's bad enough that the sons of Jacob are responsible for killing every male and sacking a whole city and taking slaves of like the women and all the livestock. But to do it to your own brother, your flesh and blood. Yeah, half brothers to most of them, but this is wild. And I think they realize at this point that they have gone too far. And like seeing their father just decimated is going to really do it for him. And we're going to leave the story of Joseph for now, just a little bit.
We're going to take a very weird detour.
Joseph is going to go off into Egypt and be sold to the officer of the captain of the guard, Potiphar, and the adventures of those.
Potiphar.
And what he does in that household is going to be insane. The life that Joseph, like Nathan said, is going to carry on, is going to be extremely character building, if you will. But the Bible does something interesting. It kind of does like this narrative thing of like leaving you in suspense, and we take a right turn. And there's about 22 years that is between the point of where Joseph gets sold into slavery and his brothers kind of meet up with him. The story that we're going to go into in chapter 38 of Genesis is going to be over Jacob's fourth son, Judah, and his son's wife, Tamar. Now,
her name's not Tamar.
Tamar. I like Tamar. That's whatever you want.
Tamar.
It's kind of crazy because it came to pass at the time that Judah departed. Oh, you don't want me to read?
Not yet, but you will. Judah is the fourth son of Jacob and Leah, his first wife. Now, there's Reuben, the firstborn, who sleeps with
Jacob's wife,
Bilhah. And then, then there's Simeon and Levi, who sack the city of Shechem and kill
everybody after making them get circumcised.
So that's, the next two. And we covered Judah
because he sold Joseph into slavery.
He decides to sell Joseph into slavery, but Jacob doesn't, he is the one that comes up with the story to sell Joseph, but Jacob has no idea up until this point. And Judah kind of adopts this role as the next in line to inherit the promise, the greater portion of the blessing and the prophecy that in chapter, I believe it's 49, Jacob gives to his 12 sons, and he promises to them. Now, Nathan, if you could read I'm sorry?
Before he reads. Yeah, so before you start reading, Nathan, kind of something that's really triggering, I guess, for me is they hate Joseph so much, but their brother Reuben slept with their mom. I think that brings more hatred. If your friends are sleeping with your mom, it's like I would no longer be friends with you. Like, what are you doing hanging around with me? And like, I'd rather kill you than this other guy that just tells on us and wears this fancy coat. But this guy, he slept with mama.
But remember, he's the oldest, and he slept.
Especially with Joseph, when Judah came up with a plan, they're just like, "All right, dude, but just stay away from mom, all right? Like, whatever."
Reuben was just like,
"Why don't we sell him?"
No, Judah didn't. So Reuben, Judah's a different dude.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Oh yeah, you're right, Reuben. Yeah.
Reuben left. He's like, just throw him over there,
guys. I'll be back. No, where's mom?
He doesn't. He didn't leave the group. That's the thing. He left while they were eating, and he doesn't know that they're selling him. He comes back later that night, like, Joseph, you still there?
Yeah, they don't want to listen to him. They're like, why is this guy talking?
Maybe that's why Jacob decides to marry them, because he's like, if I marry these two people, like my sons will stop having sex with them.
Dude, it's I can't believe you said like, where's mom? Is that where Reuben went after?
Ma?
It's not his mom, but it's not good. There's a lot of laws. Again, remember, that's going to be like one of the definitions. Like, remember Noah, his nakedness was uncovered, is like sleeping with his wife, which in that case would have been his actual mom. But
that's just a conspiracy at this point. But yeah,
sure. That was rough.
Well, let's read about the totally cool story of Judah and Tamar.
This is going to be great. If you guys thought that, it couldn't get any worse than this.
It couldn't get any more inappropriate.
It's going to get super inappropriate.
real quick.
And I'm not going to have you read the first 5 verses because it's just essentially stating that Judah married this woman.
Oh man, I really wanted to read the names.
He married a woman, a Canaanite, which again, a thing that God loves. And Abraham and Isaac and Jacob totally are super in agreement.
I had this whole bit about. Come on, let me
read the first 5 verses.
Read the first 5.
Read what you need to read.
I'll read the first
Just
3.
read it.
And it came to pass at the time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he married her and went into her. So he conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Because So she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. He was at Chezib when she bore him.
This is why you wanted to read it so you can butcher these names?
I know, I just wanted to say That's the whole thing. I don't know what
that was the whole bit?
Because his name is E.R.
And Sheila, think about the Australian like Sheila.
Sheila. Was white.
Sheila.
Oi.
But that was a boy's name. So Judah separates, has 3 kids with the Canaanite, and Judah takes for his wife, or for his firstborn, Nathan, how do you pronounce his name?
Judah took a wife for Er's firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him.
Okay, hold on. What? Because they don't explain what he did. They just, how bad, they're bad. Reuben's
God
begging
says,
his
no
stepmom.
more,
And like,
you're gone.
And what exactly did he do to be that wicked to where the Lord
killed him?
Like the Lord went out of his way to take
Kill
him out. Just Control Alt Delete or Error Delete. Get it?
Is this the first time we see that the Lord is killing one person individually? Like it's almost like a personal attack instead of, oh, we're just going to wipe out a whole city?
I'm sure that it means that some tragedy befell him and they attributed it to the Lord, divine justice. I don't think that the Lord smote him with the lightning bolt and they're like, God took him out. We got to back away slowly. But think about it like this. This is significant. That's how I take it. It's the Lord. Something happened. Like imagine a freak accident and he was a bad person. They're like, that was just God's, karmic justice.
I mean, it doesn't say that. It just says the Lord killed him.
Yeah. Or maybe the Lord did come down himself and just smash him. I don't know.
Well, good thing Judah had backups.
Well, this is the problem. So the reason there's a significance between this story is because, again, we laid out that Reuben, the firstborn, Simeon and Levi, they caused great distress to the point where Jacob would have kind of disregarded them in terms of blessing and being in line as heirs of his inheritance and his blessing. The children of Judah would have been very important if Judah was the next one up in line that would be inherited. And we know that he receives in chapter 49, when Jacob blesses his sons, Judah receives the inheritant blessing, a blessing which says that all the rest of his sons will bow before him. And so looking at that, and now we see this story, I want us to look at why it would have been so important that all these things happened and why it was important that his firstborn had a son. And I want us to also we're going to have some comparisons because these stories aren't as different as you would think. A lot of it actually compares and contrasts with the Joseph story. But Nathan, if you can now so the firstborn was evil, God killed him. And now Tamar, the wife of Judah's firstborn son, is a widow. Nathan, if you could pick back up from verse 8, sorry.
And Judah said to Onan, his second son, go into your brother's wife and marry her and raise up an heir to your brother. But Onan knew that the heir would not be his. And it came to pass when he went to his brother's wife that he emitted on the ground, lest he should give an heir to his brother. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore, he killed them also.
So there you go. Just 2 of Judah's sons just taken out by the Lord.
Wild story.
Yeah, this is just we're literally like 10 chapters or 10 verses in, and the Lord has already smote 2 generations.
I just don't get from his point of view. It's like if I understand the whole custom of it, where it's like if he dies, then the brother comes in and makes sure that the lineage goes on. But that child, theoretically, it would be his now. It's not his brother's, right? It's if he's the actual biological father.
Physically,
how does the dead brother still?
It's under it was just a custom of the time, and later actually it'd be ratified with an actual a law, I believe in Leviticus. I don't know the exact word, but later this will be something that the Lord actually gives as a rule and a custom for the Israelites as well, where the brother will adopt in order to take care, because now she would have been a widow and she's essentially just either she goes back home to mom and dad, or hopefully gets taken care of for the rest of her life, or she has nothing because she's not going to inherit. She's a woman. And during this patriarchal period of the Bible, she will have nothing. And the firstborn of the next line of the elect of God, the seed, which needs to continue. Again, that's why this is so important. God is going along and said that the seed of the woman will crush the head of the serpent. The main point of the whole story is that God wants to defeat death and evil. And now the firstborn doesn't have an heir. Onan was given a responsibility to take care of someone who was in an extremely vulnerable position. Tamar had nothing, and instead of being a good person and being a good brother, he knew that the heir would not be his. She should not give an heir to his brother. He was selfish and taking advantage of somebody in their most vulnerable. He emitted on the ground, or he ejaculated onto the ground instead of ejaculating in a place where there would be conception. Now, God killed him for this. And this part of the Bible is used, and I've had conversations recently, it's used a lot for this idea of, it's used out of context to justify the idea that prophylactics are a sin. That you shouldn't use condoms, that you shouldn't prevent pregnancies in any type of way because children are a blessing, and God is not happy with someone who does any type of intercourse in a marital setting without the intention of having children. And I just want to talk about that for a second. Nathan, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's this guy. So the son was supposed to continue the seed, the line, and he wasn't. That's why he was murked.
Thank you. Astute observation.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to leave it at that. Josh, I'm not the opinion guy. I'm the reader.
That's like the most difficult. I just set you up so hard.
I'm the reader. I'm not the opinion guy. All right.
So basically, what you're asking, Andrew, is why was he killed?
Both of yours. No.
What do you think?
What do you think about the use of prophylactics? Should you use them?
Oh, okay, that question. I think that
Josh seems thrilled.
Okay. So what I think with this whole situation that's going on here, I don't think that it was the actual aspect of him not using his seed for him just going on the floor. I don't think that was the major issue here. I think that there was a command that his father, which is Israel, that had authority by God. There was a command. Judah. Judah's the father, but the father of Judah is Israel. I mean, there's like a whole
it's his father. Still, you weren't wrong.
Hierarchy here
from his father. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So there's a command from his father, and obviously we see that Judah is a very important. There's a very important lineage here because Judah comes from the line of Judah, the lion.
Mm-hmm. So
it was not only important just for Judah saying it, but it was also important in God's eyes that there was apparently from Tamar there was supposed to be a child. It didn't matter from where, but from the seed of the family, which is tied to Israel, there should have been a child from Tamar. So I think that this was the main reason here, that the disobedience that this guy did of not following orders and actually going through with it, that was the problem. The actual
Absolutely.
act of using your seed, and because we see this happen kind of, like we'll see it even happen with Judah later with the whole like, hey, how much, even with the whole concubines aspect. These Abraham, even not really, yeah, even Jacob, we don't really see it with Isaac, but these guys had concubines. These guys had people that they used for sex. It was a thing. So it wasn't always like, oh, they did it just to have more children. Always, it was sometimes just a thing of pleasure, right? So that's kind of sometimes the reasons of having concubines is to have a more variety of pleasure. Not that it's correct, but this is just what was going on. So the actual,
that wasn't really,
okay.
What I was saying, yeah, you're right. It was the disobedient. So here's the thing about Onan is he was disobedient and he was also selfish and he also took advantage of somebody who was in an extremely vulnerable position. And I like that over time and over again, we see, and I think I mentioned this before, how we see God is stepping in for those that are in vulnerable situations. He's stepping in for the women that are mistreated, from Sarah when she's in Egypt to Hagar.
Wasn't that one of Jesus's biggest commandments as well? Like, make sure we take care of the orphans, the widows, the people who are in need. Like, that was one of the biggest things that he really emphasized on.
Like, yeah.
So there's a certain thing that God has is with people who are vulnerable to take care of them.
Yeah. And there's a certain wrath that is awoken in God that for people that take advantage of those type of people in those weak situations.
Yes.
Like the judgment that befalls them, that's kind of what I see merited such a drastic action as the Lord killed him also. Meaning that there was probably a likewise type of character flaw in probably somebody who was very, would take advantage of people or something wicked in his spirit that would lead to him upsetting God to the point where we would have to eradicate him and erase him from the line. And God said, no, not from this person will my line be from, because again, we're going to see that the line that comes from Judah in Genesis chapter 49, Jacob, when he blesses Judah, refers to him as a whelp of a lion. And this idea of a lion in this line and in his family through this specific son is to come about when we see Jesus comes about, which is the lion of the tribe of Judah. And it's very, very interesting to see that the way the story continues now, 2 sons have died to this woman. Judah looks at this woman, Tamar, and is just like, all right, I've given you my first 2 sons, and they both ended up dead. So I don't know if he knows what's going on, but he has a 3rd son named Shelah, who is not old enough to be a husband yet. And he makes a promise to Tamar. Judah says to Tamar, just remain a widow in your father's house, go back home. And when my son gets old enough, I will give him, to you, and you can marry him then. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house.
Now, in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died, and Judah was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. And it was told to Tamar, saying, look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she took off her widow's garments, covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place which was on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, because she had covered her face. Then he turned to her by the way, and said, please let me come in to you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law.
Oof.
So she said, what will you give me that you may come in to me? And he said, I will send a young goat from the flock. Riz. So she said, will you give me a pledge till you send it? Then he said, what pledge shall I give you? So she said, your signet and cord and your staff that is in your hand. Then he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. So she arose and went away and laid aside her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood.
Man, so quite a turn of events here, which just say so many bad things for the characters of the story. It's just not good. First of all, Judah's afraid that his last son is going to probably die getting married to Tamar. So he's
keeping her away.
He deceives her in the fact that he sends her away just to live with her parents and like, yeah, don't worry about it. When he's old enough, I'll give him to you as a husband and you'll be taken care of. But at this point, he's given up. And when Sheila was grown, she was not given to him as a wife. And imagine just how Tamar would have felt sitting there waiting all these years, being wronged as much as she was. And she just sees that her last chance is also thrown away. She comes up with her own little deceptive, trickery, if you will.
She's like, I'm going to get pregnant somewhere or another.
Oh, goodness.
She makes herself available. Apparently, if you cover your face,
she dresses like a harlot.
Means that
this
you're
is
available.
my problem. Sure. But what type of guy was Judah that he just driving by is like, oh, look, a whore. Let me just bang. Always up for a good prostitute on this Tuesday.
Look, a harlot. Please, take this goat.
And her face is covered.
Well, he's the type of guy that chooses to kill his own brother. That's the type of guy he is. We got to remember that.
Judah was the one that sold him into slavery and said not to kill him.
Yeah,
Still, he always wants something. He's a businessman.
He's nothing like his older brother who loved Bilha.
But he is something like him. He just loves that strange, just weird. I just saw her on the side of a dusty trail.
Out of all the names,
he has no wife, so he's not.
Bilha is probably the top of the list for me.
Bilha.
Well, either way, his wife died. It's not like he's actually tied to a certain person at the moment. So in his mind, it's kind of open for discussion. So he's walking home.
Andrew,
he's lonely. He doesn't have.
Can't a grieving man grieve?
You're right, guys. You've heard it here from the Greater Meaning Podcast.
He's getting comforted.
If you're a
by
widower,
the harlot.
If you're a widower, prostitution is okay.
Dude, it's not a prostitute. She's a harlot. You keep saying prostitute.
He is paying her for her services, and she's demanding a deposit.
She's asking, what are you going to give
Andrew, after you say that statement, you're supposed to say it doesn't have to be okay. That's not the only option that you have.
You're right. I'm sorry. I didn't preface. We are not okay with that. We are a Bible podcast, and we are not condoning prostitution or, sex with favors.
She's not a prostitute. She's just simply a whore.
She dresses as a harlot, covers her face, and then also but she's perfect here in the fact that she's like, what are you going to give me if I don't, if you don't have a goat with you right now to pay me, which wild payment. Like, give me some silver. Like Joseph at least got silver for him, but she gets paid with a goat, a young goat.
Well, look, she did have a veil on her face. He's like, look, I'd give you
a goat
silver
can be used for money.
I guess, yeah, you're right. But she gets the signet, which is pretty much the sign of who he is, his family crest, and his walking stick, which is awesome. And she just straight up undresses and goes back home like nothing ever happened.
And doesn't even wait for the goat.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't want. She wants to hold on to this for a reason.
Yeah,
we're going to see that Judah actually sensed the young goat by the hand of his friend, the Adulamite, to kind of all right, give this to the woman I promised, and then give me, get my stuff back. I need my ring. That's kind of an important ring, And
they're like, "There's no harlot here."
What type of day? What type of day would that have been? It's just like.
But she told me to get a goat.
It's like, where's the girl that's usually waiting on this corner? Is like, what are you talking about? This is a Wendy's.
There's no girl there.
And he's just like, that's wild. I guess I just got robbed by some random chick. And this is where the story kind of gets hilarious. Not hilarious, but insane, in my opinion. Nathan.
I'm going to read from verse 24. Because Judah's like, well, let her keep the signet and the staff. Basically. Yeah. And lest we be, he doesn't want people to know.
Yeah, he doesn't want people to find out.
He got outsmarted by some harlot.
Some random.
So he's just like, let her, I'm not just, I sent for this goat and she's not here. Just let her keep the stuff, not hunt her down.
Exactly.
All right, verse 24. Yeah. And it came to pass about 3 months after that Judah was told, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is with child by harlotry.
I love that word.
So Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned.
Okay, stop. What? First of all, just hold on.
Because he assumes she just slept with anybody.
Yeah. What? Like, where's the logic and the justice in this?
Because she's supposed to be wholesome for his son.
But he didn't give her to him.
Yes, but it doesn't matter because Judah's an upstanding citizen.
Nobody knows that Judah on the low just be like, I can't believe someone would engage in such debaucherous actions.
Bring her out and let her be burned.
Burned? That's what we're doing? Like, okay, cast her out, shame her, burn her at the stake, dude? A pregnant woman?
The aspect of burning, that's a very cruel and very, like, it shows kind of the character of Jacob, like what's going on in his mind throughout all of this, that even the apple does not fall far from the tree. So if his sons were this wicked, they learned it from someone, and that being the father. So the father obviously had issues.
Yeah, we already know that from kind of like the fact that, like I brought up in the beginning of the episode, the way they were raised was probably very absent. He never had, like Jacob, I don't see, and we know that from the story with Shechem, he wasn't a very like hands-on leader, authoritative figure, kind of putting everybody in line. He kind of was passive in his responses and his actions. They kind of raised themselves, each according to their own moms, probably, were just kind of raised by them and their opinions. And to go straight to burning, as opposed to like, in his mind, he's like, oh, a woman, it's kind of that idea where like, if a man does it, it's not as bad as if a woman does it. You know what I mean? And it's just, Tamar is very smart in the way that she responds to this. And the fact that she kind of like, when she was brought out, she sends to the man, is like,
when she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am with child. And she said, please determine whose these are, the signet and cord and staff.
And I love Judah's response.
So Judah acknowledged them and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah, my son. And he never knew her again.
So good. He never slept with her again. I'm glad that, at least he did that. And then he did, I like his response because it's kind of like acknowledging that he did wrong, and he might have blown off the handle a little bit with his initial response of just burn her at the stake. But
at that moment, like, he realized that he's been outed. Like, if he didn't fess up to it, or there's no way for him to say, no, this is not true. Like, I don't know who this guy is, because it was his ring. Everybody knew his ring and his staff, most likely. The goat could be played as it could be anybody's goat, but the other two objects are definitely his. So he that was his opportunity to fess up. If he didn't fess up, then like he looks kind of like an idiot in front of everybody.
Not only that, but I don't know if the Lord would have liked that. And if he wasn't this type of character, so far we've seen in the story, the Lord's not shy from kind of taking out those who are just iniquitous at heart with no repentance or any type of shame.
This is true.
Now the time for the craziest birth so far. This is weird.
This is weird.
I'm going to read the rest of it, the rest of the chapter, because it's just only 3-4 verses.
Yeah,
but this is very weird. Now it came to pass at the time for giving birth that, behold, twins were in her womb. And so it was, when she was giving birth, that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, this one came out first. Then it happened as he, what?
This is insane. Keep reading.
Oh, then it happened. This one. Then it happened as he drew back his hand that his brother came out unexpectedly.
Again.
And she said, how did you break through? This breach be upon you. Therefore, his name was called Perez. Afterward, his brother came out who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah.
What?
So apparently,
we have
kids being born.
We have a Latino and a Hebrew.
Shot out.
A what? What, Josh?
Perez is definitely more of a Latin name than a Hebrew name.
Perez.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I was so confused. You're like, we have a Latino and a Hebrew. I was like, wait, what?
Well, what's weird is like giving birth, one twin just shot out like one's coming out and then the other one just shot out around him?
Well, you see, Jacob was a little more timid, and he would only grasp the heel if Esau. Perez was a little bit more bold, and he yanked his brother back and jumped out ahead of him. Like I don't know, I don't have any other way to conceptualize what that happened except for a little preborn baby like cognitively knowing to jump ahead of his own brother.
Well,
Popped out the womb. Like a baby's hand pops out the womb, they mark it, and then gets sucked back inside, I guess, and the other one jumps up ahead. I don't know. That's wild to me. This whole story, everything about it. 2 sons struck down. A dad.
From what I know of childbirth is it has to be the head first. And if the hand comes out first, I don't know if that's really like a good birth, because the way that the child has to come out, it has to almost like be in a type of way, kind of going on a water slide backwards, right? You can't have really your hands up. First. You have to have it has to be your head first, just backwards. I mean, I don't think they ever really want you to go backwards on a water slide. But either way, for me, having a personal and actual firsthand experience being the doctor for my wife without anybody there and delivering delivering my firstborn son, from what I was told is that the head must come out first.
What?
Hold on, because Nathan doesn't know this. Yes, Josh came home and walked in, and his wife was currently pushing out a baby.
Oh, wow. You gave birth to your firstborn son?
Jeez. Yeah, I was the doctor.
That's his 3rd child. He was born at home. Like they didn't get. Actually, you planned to give birth at home, right? It wasn't like she just accidentally.
Yeah, we planned to give birth at home. The doctor didn't make it in time, and now our 4th, which is coming. Yeah, the midwife. Our 4th, which is happening anytime now. Probably by the time this episode comes out, we'll already have the 4th. But we're having a at home birth again, and I told her like I want to do this even more old fashioned, and I'd like to be outside drinking a cup of coffee, and then the midwife kind of like, it's a boy or it's a girl, and I'm just like, hurrah, huzzah, like yay, and then parade my child around.
You're out there pacing, and the moment they announce, you light a whole cigar in front of it, just blowing smoke while holding your baby. Listen here.
Yeah. You guys need to come over. We need to play some cards.
Oh my goodness. This is a wild.
Well, I mean, if you really want to, the way to do it is you totally ignore everything. You're at work, working, and you're going to call your son was born or your daughter was born. Good.
I expect dinner on the table at 5.
Yeah, and just keep working.
That's kind of what I see Josh doing.
All right, back to the story.
Madman. I just see Josh in a madman suit.
Well, this is kind of the end of the story, right?
Yeah.
So, what's her name?
Tamar.
So Tamar is stay away from a Tamar.
Well,
Tamar is trouble.
You're either going to get robbed or you're going to end up dead.
Like, Tamar is the first woman where, dude, I don't know, man. She's kind of
she definitely takes care of herself. She's not a victim.
Yeah.
She took matters into her own hands, and she made it happen. And she became the mother of Perez, who will eventually lead to the line of Boaz, who will lead to the line of David, who, again, and I've said this many times already, I can't stress this enough. The reason the story is here is because it needs to be shown the history of how the seed was passed down. That's kind of a lot of what Genesis is. It's the story of the genealogies of the line that was selected by God. But my question to you guys is, and one thing that kind of came up to me a lot is we could clearly see everybody's kind of awful when it comes to, and me and Josh talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of wickedness and quote unquote sin, but this is kind of before there was any type of Mosaic law. There was this before any type of God didn't come and say specifically, do this and it's a sin, do that and it's a sin. And it's kind of insane to think about that something like this, God's elect people, God is working, God is planning out the salvation of humanity through this line of people, but they're also just sitting, quote unquote, like back and forth, or they're not just necessarily sinning, but they're just wicked. and they're doing. I don't think anybody would argue that.
I think
finding
how
a prostitute
God's
on the side of the road is good.
I think how God's
Why do you
kind
think
of
that
doing doing all of this from the very beginning is it's like starting a business and you don't really have rules yet. It's just kind of like do whatever you got to do to get the job done. I don't care how you get it done, just get it done and let's move forward. So I think this is kind of what's going on here, that God just kind of like, he's just doing what he has to do to get the lineage to go forward, to get to Jesus at some point, right?
I have a theory, right? And Jesus, like, it's all right. So let's look at it this way. Let's say that everybody from Jesus's lineage was just this super righteous, super godly people, right? I mean, and then thousands of years later or whatever, Jesus is born, right? Are you paying attention?
Yes, sir.
You're like going through so many pages right now.
Just keep speaking. You're good.
It's really distracting.
You're good.
Like, anyway, that's like Jesus was born and had to be born from a human lineage, and humanity is so flawed in its essence, and it's so it's not perfect. Like, humans aren't perfect, and Jesus had to be born through a human lineage. Like, there were great people in his lineage, there were not so great people in his lineage.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing, they all had very human traits and very human qualities. Like, they had, some of them were deceitful, some of them were, King David.
Yeah.
King David made mistakes. You know what I mean? Solomon made mistakes. A lot. There's just like, they were all human. That's what I'm just kind of getting at. It was like super, it's showing that it's human, and Jesus was born human, and despite having all these traits in his genealogy, in his DNA, he still was able to live a perfect life.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's just that the base of that question that rung out in my head is kind of, we covered the story of Jacob and the fact that he was deceitful and deceived Isaac, and through a lie he was blessed. And like, you asked the question, how can a blessing come from a deceit?
A bad thing.
You asked that question.
I asked. I said, you ask, or some people. I've talked to people. They've had that, like, they've brought that up to me too, and I've had to really think about it. And that's kind of what, when I read the stories, like, really coming with an answer. And it's kind of like what you said. It's like this idea that this is a story of the Bible is a story of God's chosen people, and the story of how he saves humanity from the sin that they're in. And right now they're in a period in history where they are doing what's right in their own eyes, and they are sinful. And God even says later on, when Moses comes around and he has this final conversation with them in Deuteronomy, that the Lord did not, in chapter 7, God straight up says to him, the Lord did not set his love on you or choose you because you were more in number, or you were greater, or you were mightier than any other people, for you were the least of all people. But because the Lord loves you, and because he would keep his oath which he swore to your fathers, the Lord has brought you out of the mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of bondage. It means essentially that we're going through the stories of the Bible, and one thing I need to make clear is that we see these main characters aren't necessarily fully good. There's nothing. The only thing that separates them from the Canaanites, from the other people in the world, is the fact that God has chosen them, and God has elected to bless them and keep them. And because God is faithful to Abraham and faithful to Noah and faithful to his covenant, it's the faithfulness of God that keeps them, and is that he's going to use them to carry out, even though they make mistakes, even though they continuously fall, he's going to be faithful to the word that he made, that he said, when he said, I will bring you out of bondage. I will save you, and I will reconnect you with me, that connection you lost through sin. But sin here isn't sin in the same sense as, like, there's this way I had a conversation with my dad to kind of bring out this idea, because where do you get sin? Well, there's no law yet. There's no rule. Like, what would you call doing something like, there's no law that says thou shalt not kill. So if you kill, is it a sin at this point in the Bible? There are passages, and I'm not going to read all of them. I did some research, but the book of Romans, I encourage you to read, especially, chapters 4, chapters 5, chapter 7. Just read the first 7 chapters, and you'll read continually how there's a law of morality that's written in the hearts of man that God has placed in every single one of them. And it wasn't until that the law came about that actually condemned to sin. So it was still a judgment. You were still in sin, but you weren't labeled as a sinner until you've transgressed against a specific law. And you, in the patriarchal period, if you were to commit something that was wicked, because God obviously had judgment, he struck down for his wickedness. Now, God obviously has a way to judge what you do is wrong or right, and that is based on what he instilled in the hearts of man when he created them in his image. And it's not going to be, and that's why he brings about the law, in order to show a distinction, a separation between his elect and the rest of the world.
Correct.
That was a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good because this was a topic that was brought up to me probably a while ago. The concept of actually what is sin, because we do have God's law, but even with the 10 Commandments and the law of God, which is a lot of it is basically Leviticus kind of, but that's more towards the Hebrew end. Either way, let's say there's a tribe, right, in, I don't know, South America. They've never heard of God. And even with them, there's a right and wrong, kind of how you were talking about, that it's built into us. And God, as we see these stories unfold, we see terrible things happen and also very good things that happen. And it's not necessarily that if you kill somebody, sometimes it's not necessarily that it's bad, because obviously we're seeing that God is killing the wicked, right? He's with these two brothers, he straight up like found a way and he killed them. So theoretically, in that aspect, just because even if he is God, if he's basically killing people, and I don't want to say he's contradicting himself because he's not, but if we're looking at it from that aspect, then theoretically, then he's also doing wrong, and then who is actually doing right? It's a case-by-case scenario, and we see this play out. Even with what Judah is going through and saying like, oh, you know, she is more righteous than I. Him fessing up and actually doing the right thing, that was a good thing that he did. If he was to go the other way, that would be very bad. It's a case-by-case scenario with sin. Other people are raised different. If we were raised, because I mean, we were raised very like Pentecostal, but I remember back in the day, where if a woman didn't show up to church with something covering their hair, that was like, I mean, that was bad. There were some cases where people actually got kicked out, and in some people's eyes, it could be like, oh, she's sinning. Or even with me, I remember showing up with shorts. I got kicked out of church because I was showing up with shorts, and it was explained like this is a sin in God's eyes and stuff like that. But it's a case-by-case scenario of how you were raised, how you're taught by, and also by the culture and by the people. Because in different areas, you do things differently. And out here, it's a little bit, it's a different way, right? So sin is obviously a whole picture that is put into us of what is right and wrong, but it's also of a way that we were taught by our parents. And if we are disobeying and we know that something is wrong, you know what you know what I'm trying to say, Andrew? Like,
the Bible confirms it. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm listening to you because I want to kind of specify that what you're saying is scriptural. I mean, not the part of like the scarf. I mean, if it doesn't clearly say that it's a sin, I don't think that wearing a scarf is a case by case basis. But I get what you're trying to say. The Bible tells us, and again, it's throughout Romans. I love Romans' breakdown of righteousness and unrighteousness, the law and the justification of the law versus the justification of grace. But in chapter 1 specifically, it says that for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because they may be known of God is because what may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So that question of like, oh, somebody out in the middle of an island would never have connection, the invisible attributes of God, which have been instilled from creation, were placed. A child does not need to learn that to kill its parent is wrong, or to sleep with his father's concubine is wrong. Now, I don't want to go too deep into like, this is more of a Bible study podcast. This is more of a Bible story podcast. This is getting really in the weeds of like getting to like Bible study.
Yeah, we're straight up being a Bible study.
We're literally talking about the theology of sin, and it's my fault.
I thought we were a Bible study.
Yeah, in a way, it's our ideas, but I want to. We're supposed to be telling the stories, but sometimes these ideas pop up, and I think it's beautiful that God gave us an answer to these type of things. You know what I mean? Like even it talks about in chapter 2 of Romans, for as many have sinned without the law will also perish. Many have sinned without the law will also perish without the law, and as many have sinned in the law will be judged by the law. So you have the law, and again, you're right, Nathan. I don't want to get too much.
Nathan said nothing.
Oh, I mean, Josh, excuse me. You're right in terms of like it's before the law was clearly established by God. The
question was murder a sin? The
question is, how did God judge wickedness and iniquity? Where was the line drawn before there was the measuring rod of the law?
Sleeping with your mom probably like makes or with your dad. That's probably bad.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, who's to say is bad? Because there are people today that will say there's nothing wrong with that if they're two consenting adults, if they're not directly related. Yeah, incest might be a sin, but if it was his unrelated stepmom or his unrelated like dad's
you also got to look even with Isaac, where goes over there and he says, "Oh, this is my sister," and the guy's like, "Oh, how could you do this?" And God shows up to him in a vision or a dream and says, "Like, you're a dead man because of what you've done." Right?
Yeah, that was Isaac.
So even with that, those people, that was just part of their that was just part of their custom. And they knew nothing of what was going on. So it wasn't even like the guy was sinning. It was the fact this was going to ruin God's plan. Because if Rebecca was to have a child by this guy, bad things were definitely going to happen.
I think at the end of the day, God is preserving the bloodline for Christ.
Exactly. It wasn't a matter of sin or no sin. It was the fact of.
I think at the end of the day, God, and like Josh said earlier, the very first thing is like a business. So trying to make it work with any means possible. It's pretty good in that. I mean, I liked it. I like what he said that because I get what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
In a sense that God is preserving the line by any means necessary. That's why had to go, and that's why the other guy refusing to consummate the marriage had to go.
Yeah.
Right, because God's like, we need the blood, we need to keep that bloodline flowing.
There is like this God that created the law is the same God before the law was in place. And we could enter and make this my greater meaning because I want to use this as
you better get into those dreams.
That's what I'm doing. I want to segue back because there's a lot of comparison between this story. There's a lot of comparison between Judah and Joseph. Because again, remember the question I asked at the beginning, why are we talking about Joseph if Judah is the one through whom the line, up until now, it's all the ones that were important on the lineage of the seed.
Who's Joseph?
That was a whole guy we talked about until now.
Oh yeah, the guy with the colorful coat.
God is using Joseph as a figure. He reveals to him some very prophetic dreams that I believe go further than just a story of his life. And again, this is my greater meaning, right? This is what I believe is the greatest subject to the story, and I'll tie everything together. The first dream Joseph has, and I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going to try to make it as convoluted, but he has the dream of the sheaves of wheat that bow down to his sheaf of wheat.
The bundles of wheat.
Yeah, and we know that eventually, through his story, he will be someone who is taken to Egypt through the guise of slavery, through the struggle. He'll go through prison. He'll go through adversity. He'll go through betrayal. And then he will get to a position where he is able to provide wheat and bread for the rest of his family. And it says literally, actually, the verses, Egypt during that time of famine will be providing bread to all the nations of the earth. And what I believe is that Joseph was being shown visions to give to it. Because remember, there was that verse where he's like, please hear this dream. He had to share this with us. But even though they hated to talk to him and they could not speak to him peaceably, he made it. There was something about him that he's like, I need to share this with everybody, what I saw. it was to me the first instance of God revealing to Israel and revealing to the tribes the purpose in which they were supposed to fulfill as God's elected people, to provide the word, which is throughout the Bible used as alluded to as bread, as
the bread
source, the manna that's given from heaven. Jeremiah speaks about it. Deuteronomy speaks about it. The rest of the Bible, you'll see commonly where you see the bread is referred to as God's word. And Israel was supposed to be a nation set apart, like Joseph was an individual in a foreign place, a nation set in a foreign land, where they were supposed to be somebody that, where Judah ran to sexual immorality, Joseph would run away from sexual immorality and try to be pure. Where Judah used the goat to be deceptive, or used the goat to try to pay for his wrongdoing. A goat was used, and the blood of the goat was used to create the deception of Joseph's life and pretending like he was dead. And the characters contrast in this mighty way where even though Joseph was more quote unquote righteous in his actions, Judah was the line that would be used and God will use because again, he's faithful to his promises. But that idea that it's funny that he showed him wheat, which will eventually is what's used to make bread, will bow to him. And later on, even further than that, Israel is not only supposed to be an idea that they provide God word. The word of God actually in Romans says that the Jews were they were entrusted with the word to give it to the rest of the world. And they were entrusted to them first, and they didn't. And that's one of the biggest pitfalls that the Israelites would have eventually. And eventually, Christ, the word, becomes flesh. And one of the most important things Jesus says, he says that I am what? I am the bread. Jesus, the living word, becomes flesh and becomes the bread of life for us. And there's a long segue into that. So I think that it's not only a prophetic dream to show that Joseph was going to raise up and be the savior for his brothers, but he was supposed to show his father and his brothers at that early stage where the nation of Israel was starting out. You have the sons who will all branch out and be tribes, and they'll become a great nation. This is what God sees of you. And then it contrasts with the second dream where you have the 11 stars and the sun and the moon, which signifies, remember, and again, this is all in Deuteronomy, or excuse me, this is all in Genesis. What was the purpose of God creating the stars and the sun and the moon in the sky on that day? I think it was day 4.
To separate the light from the darkness.
Separate the light from darkness, and it was for a sign of signs and seasons, for times, and to be able to distinguish different things, right? It was on the cosmic level. So there's the earthly, physical level of bread and feeding, and there was the greater, larger meaning of the spiritual sense where you see eventually Christ will be that figure that everybody bows down to, that fulfills that. That's why Joseph, a lot of times we're introducing him in this first part of the story. He is looked at just like Isaac was as a representation of this messianic figure. Like he's an allusion towards who Jesus will be in his character. He'll live a life where even though he goes through adversity, he strives to be righteous and to do the good things. Again, that's why I said earlier, I believe that his character was because of how much time he spent with Jacob, he saw the righteousness of his father after a life lived with God. He set himself, where do you think he learned these lessons? He just naturally knew to be right and to trust in God, and God would trust him with divination of dreams? No. It's from what he learned and what God instilled in him and what he saw from his father. But I don't think it was by accident that he was the one that was used to show this dream as a sign for his brothers, and Judah was the one that was used to actually bring about that line. Because up until that point, the other 3 brothers kind of fumbled it a little bit, pretty bad. But I just wanted to kind of bring that. And again, it's kind of, I tried to shorten it. I didn't want to go super
That was
long.
short?
That was short, believe it or not, because there's all the verses and there's all the breakdowns, and I'm not going to preach it.
That wasn't short. I try to make it short. I've been talking for an hour.
But yeah, the purpose of Joseph's dreams and in comparison
so Joseph's dreams are Jesus.
Joseph's dreams.
That's your greater meaning.
Joseph's dreams show what Israel as a nation is supposed to represent in the world.
In the world.
And you're on a
streak. Jesus is the thing.
Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
For the past couple
your greater meaning.
For the past couple episodes, Andrew's been using Jesus as a scapegoat for his greater meaning.
Scapegoat.
Yeah, you lean hard into the Jesus.
That's the whole point.
I know it's the whole point, but like you It's like, yeah, we know it's Jesus, but like, what's the greater meaning to you? I'm just playing. I like it. Well, okay, Josh, you're next.
That's funny.
Okay, so for me, the greater meaning. So with this story, for me, the greater meaning I would say have to be on the aspect of pride. Whether you know you have it or whether you don't know you have it. Some people, with the way they live their life, it's like they were never taught that. Hey, like they were never taught humbleness. With Joseph, what we see, what's going on is just like we see him as this kid who has his head on his shoulders a little bit too high. He's going around, he's telling on his brothers, and obviously he's loved by his father, but not just for any reason. There's more to it, to why his father loves him. But even his father sees that this kid has got kind of his pride issues are a little bit on the extreme side, even if he is the chosen one. So this pride that Joseph has leads him to trouble, leads him to his brothers almost killing him, but then choosing to sell him into slavery. And then we see this whole pride thing pass on to even Judah's children, and the aspect of him not trying to preserve the brothers line and just going on the floor. That's kind of that's pridefulness, not being able to see the bigger picture and sacrifice yourself for a moment for the greater good. But yeah, I mean that's kind of like what I'm seeing from some of this. It's a pride aspect, and even with us in our lives, sometimes we put our pride before what God wants us to do. And sometimes God will show us some great things. And I knew a guy back in the day where like a prophet went and told him like, hey, you're going to be the prophet of this generation and stuff like that. And that got into this guy's head. And everywhere he went, all he was always telling people, he would always tell them like, oh, God told me that I'm going to be oh, my bad. I'm going to rephrase this, but God apparently told him that he's going to be the Moses of this generation. I didn't say that before. I said it wrong. But that's what he would tell everybody. He would go around, and whenever there was a prayer meeting or whenever there was like some big serious conversation going on, he would always try to remind everybody like, hey, let me just let you know that God told me that I'm going to be the Moses of this generation. And you know what that did to people? That basically like put a wall between them and the listener. And the listener just decides to no longer listen because they see all this pride that's in front. Be a little bit more humble. People will be willing to listen to you if you have more of a humble way of approaching things, right? Even probably sometimes even as a salesman, right? I know you guys are big into sales. From a more personal aspect, a little bit of a tip, I would say for a sales point of view, and you guys can correct me if you think that I'm wrong. But for me, what works for me is that I don't go straight forward and talk to a customer and then start showing them like, oh, I got this watch, there's this other job that I got going on that's a bunch of money, I'm making all this. I go straight forward and I tell them what's real, and I make them, I want to make them feel like they can trust me, right? You want to make them feel like you're a part of them, not that you're set apart and you're like this awesome person. It's kind of hard to relate to somebody when you go to them and you're almost acting like a god. Feel more personable, feel more approachable, and somebody will be willing to listen to you when you are approachable. But with Joseph, with these other characters of the Bible that have this pride, that have this chip on their shoulder, they're not approachable. And you can see that it leads to dire consequences because of it. So that's my greater meaning with this.
Be humble.
Pride cometh before the fall.
Absolutely.
Pride's the original sin.
Awesome.
Don't be prideful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Lions have this pride around them, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Judah, we know this is pride.
All right. So my greater meaning that I took from this episode, this is Nathan speaking.
Hi, Nathan.
I look at this these texts and I look at the texts we've been reading before, and I'm reminded so much of God's faithfulness to man and how God keeps his promises to man. And let me say this. Do you ever feel like, let's say you're a believer and you turn to Christ. And then do you ever feel like you just let God down left and right? You can't seem to stand up straight. You can't seem to break through that particular sin that's bothering you. You can't seem to defeat those inner demons. You try to not lose your temper. You try to not even tell a lie, white lies. You try to be an honest person, but it's not in your nature. Well, guess what? The chosen people in the Bible that I read, they were very deceitful. They lost their temper. They didn't keep their promises to God always. They were lustful, full of lust. They made a lot of mistakes. Did God break his promise with them? No. God always is faithful to you. God keeps the promises that he makes you. God promised Abraham he's going to be the father of a great nation. God promised humanity that there's going to be salvation one day and that humanity will be saved. And Jesus Christ was the proof of that. There was a lot of pretty wild people, very human people between Abraham and Jesus. And God never forgets to be faithful to you. Let me just put it this way. If you've turned a page from the Old Testament to the New Testament, that's 400 years. Yeah. But at the end of the Old Testament. No.
Oh, from the last book.
From the last book of the Old Testament to the first book of the New. 400 years passes before Jesus arrives.
I was about to say, what?
Yeah.
That's crazy that God kept his promise. And that's the thing that you got to remember. It no matter where you are in your life, if you feel that you have wronged God or Christ in some way, always remember this. Jesus lived the perfect life for you. Jesus died for your sins, and Jesus will always remain faithful to his promise that you will be saved as long as you repent of your sins and believe that Jesus is your Savior, and you'll have everlasting life. That is the promise Jesus gave. That's the promise God gave to earth, and he keeps to that promise. And you are going to be human. You're never going to be perfect. You're always going to make mistakes. You're always going to fall short of that benchmark you're trying to hit because you're human. But our God is our God, and God is not human, and he doesn't break his promises. I mean, just look up in the sky after it rains and you see that rainbow. That's a promise God made, and the earth hasn't been flooded since. So that's my greater meaning.
Awesome. Like, while we're unfaithful, God remains faithful. Or even
Jesus is always the answer once again.
Jesus is always the answer.
Hey, that wasn't my answer. It wasn't Jesus.
Okay, first of all, I wasn't saying that Jesus was the answer. I was saying that
I know Jesus isn't your answer ever. I'm just playing. Andrew's very, very faithful. You're Christian.
Oh, thank you.
So,
all right, guys. Well, this concludes the end of this. I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I'd like to remind you, if you have any questions, just email us at www.emailuscom.
Email us your greater meaning or things that we missed. You know, I love to hear from feedback. And we have one faithful emailer that sent us an email here recently. Old S. Adam.
Are we going to read it? Can I read it?
Yeah, sure.
Hello, Greater Meaning crew. It's been a while. ... I just listened to episode 13. I added a dot. And it was talking about Isaac and his life. And I thought of some things that were interesting to me. Isaac knew about God and seen how God had worked in his father's life and how he was the God of Abraham. But God didn't just bless Abraham, but Isaac too. God made himself personally known to Isaac, not just as the God of Abraham, but also the God of Isaac.
Whoa.
Our faith needs to be personal with God, not relying on others and their own testimony. Yes, those things are good to hear and are encouraging, but God desires a personal relationship with us, not just with our fathers or grandfathers. Revelations 3:20 reminds me a lot of this, of how Jesus wants us to be personal with him and abide in him as he abides in us. I was just thinking about that. Love the episodes. I really enjoyed them. God bless you guys.
So,
thank you very much, Samuel.
Let me hit on that email for a little bit. S. Adam.
What?
Why?
Why? It was a nice email. He was just giving us something.
No,
that stuck out to him.
yes, no, I agree with it. But kind of like go a little bit backwards, because I get what he's saying there about the personal relationship. But at this point, right before all of this is going down, is that God is basically having this relationship with the patriarchs, right? The servants really don't have this. It's their masters. It's the father's God. They don't really have this one-on-one with God like the way that these guys do, right? God will show up to them in a dream or in person. Obviously, we see that with Isaac and Abraham and even Jacob when him wrestling God. But their servants, it comes when they're sent on a mission by, let's say, the father or the person in charge. Not everybody, in other words, is having this one-on-one with God like how we have now. Because when Jesus shows up in the picture, he makes it personal. He makes it a thing that is available for everyone. You know what I mean? So I agree. I'm just reiterating a little bit to make more sense of it, because that applies to now, but it didn't really apply to back then.
Yeah.
Please keep writing us emails so we won't attack them.
Email us at greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. That's greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com. We really thank you guys for listening. If you like and you want to share or you want to support what we do, please like, subscribe, leave us a good review, share us with your friends. We're really excited to almost be done with Genesis and get ready to start the epic story of Moses and Exodus. But we have a few more parts here with Joseph. Oh, yes. We'll see how God works. And yeah. Tune in next time where we talk about even more slavery. Thanks, guys. We love you. See ya. It's just going to get better and better.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Look out for that merch.
Bye.